Megajoule is equal to 947.817, etc. BTUs, and a gigajoule is equal to 947,817.12, etc. BTUs. And to further help you know what a BTU would relate to in heat, I have on the second sign the square footage of my house, which is 2,328 feet squared. And then I have 3 different temperatures and the amount of BTUs it would take per hour to heat my house at that temperature. So we have a 60-degree temperature and a 0 and a 40 below. But those 3 temperatures were pretty regular temperatures.
Those are outside temperatures.
Outside temperatures.
Okay.
And that's how many BTUs it would take to keep my house at 72 degrees inside. So that will give you some kind of a way to relate to what a joule is. Okay, well, my energy conservation project today is on gasification boilers versus barrel stoves. And the questions I asked myself was, first of all, is there a source of wood heat that is A, non-allergenic, B, clean for the atmosphere, and C, capable of heating domestic water? These are 3 concerns we have in our community. There are many of us who have allergic reactions to the smoke and the creosote, and we know that if it's not good for us, there must be something in it that's not good for the atmosphere. Well, this causes many conflicting hot issues. Some people say greenhouse gases, there's no such thing and it doesn't bother us, and other people say it does. So as wise investors and as wanting to be good citizens, we want to look at this issue. And we all need hot water in our houses for showering and for other purposes. So is there something that would take all of these 3 issues and deal with them all effectively? That's what the question is. So the next thing I looked at was methodology. How was I going to look into this and get my data? So I had to answer some questions here. Number 1, how much do I spend on heat? And that would relate to how many cords do I use in a year, how long it takes me to stack a cord. Time is money, as we all know. So how would this time compute in dollars and cents? If I was actually hired out to do this, how much would that cost? And how much do I spend on the 2 electrical heaters in my house? Due to several conflicting issues with the way our house is built, 2 of us have to use electric heaters in our rooms at night to keep them at a temperature that prevents us from getting sick. So I needed to look at how much that cost us. How much do I spend on propane water heating in a year? And how do these expenses compare with what a gasification boiler requires? So do I spend more with my barrel stove when I compare it to a gasification boiler, or do I spend less? These were questions I needed to ask and get answers for. So how did I collect my data? First of all, I had to make a box that I could measure certain time sequences in, and that was a small enough box that it wasn't overwhelming. So I chose to have a timeline of 3 different times: weekly, monthly, and yearly usage. And one interesting thing was, because of the type of data I was collecting, I found that often I had to break this down backwards. That first I knew the year, then I had to divide to get the month and divide again to get the weekly usage, just because of the type of data I was securing about. I wanted to be able to compare these 3 different time frames between the barrel stoves and the gasification boiler. Firewood data, I got my estimates from Regal Sawmill. I want to thank all of the Regal partners here today for letting me come and ask you questions and bug you. I appreciate the information you gave me. And for the propane heating data, of course, I consulted the checkbook to see how much was paid out to them over the course of a year. Electrical heating data, I consulted Copper Valley Electric, and they have a wonderful calculator device on their website that helped me to know exactly how much electricity using 2 heaters would be worth. And that was a great help for me. And then for the gasification boiler data, I received my information from several different websites. And also from consulting those we know in Haynes, I refer to specifically Jack Stockton. Unfortunately, Haynes hasn't finished actually installing their boiler, so he was really of little help, but he was able to answer my questions as much as he knew. So that was the data collection I was able to do. The analysis of data. How did I analyze the data once I got it? I used a spreadsheet to calculate the data, and if you will look at your handouts, the very last page is my data spreadsheet. And that might be handy for you to refer to at different times during this presentation to look at the actual amount of costs. And you'll notice there that because I had to break down some of these numbers backwards from year to month to week, you'll see a very long list of numbers after the decimal point. And I left that in there knowing that there were some accountant-minded people that might find that interesting. So that's just for your interest's sake. And the way I was able to look at this was I took the quantity of the usage and I multiplied it times the cost, and that gave me my subtotal. So for instance, 22 cords of wood would be my quantity of usage times the cost of that wood, say it's $5, and that gave me my subtotal. And I added these subtotals together to get my total. With the cord specifically, I took the yearly usage divided by 12 and divided that by 4. And that gave me my 3 time references, both yearly and monthly and weekly. With the stacking, I took the hourly cost times the cords that I had to stack per year. And that gave me the money that my time was worth. The propane heater, I took the yearly usage and divided it by 12 and again by 4. That gave me all 3 time references for that. For the electric heaters, I knew I didn't use these electric heaters 12 months out of the year. So I took 5 months, I believe I only used them 5 months out of the year, times 8 hours actually, because I don't use them all day long, I'm not home. We basically use them in the evening when we're in our rooms. Times the kilowatt hours, and that was where Copper Valley Electric's calculator really came in handy. So again, these were just 3 time periods, weekly, monthly, and yearly. The next thing I'd like to answer before going on to looking at how the figures equal out is exactly what is gasification. And the method is basically, in a really simple way, defined as a method for extracting energy from many different types of organic materials. Today I'm just looking at wood because that's what we use and that's what we're interested in looking at. But it could also be propane, it could be oil, it could be coal, and I understand it can also be used oil. You don't have to get fresh oil. If you have used oil available to you, you can use that, and that also is another savings. And there are even some people who use plastics. But right now we're looking just at wood.